Can you really learn music production in as little as 10 days? Honestly, I think the answer is yes.
Nice.
That's genuinely what I believe, and by the end of this video, I think you'll believe it too. I think the internet sells us a lie and makes us believe that we need to endure multiple years of struggle before we can just sit down in a studio and finally enjoy ourselves making music that we like. So let's start this video off by tackling the question of authority, meaning why should you care about what I think? Do I even have the necessary authority to be considered a trustworthy source of information on this topic? This is a really important question, and it's a question that you should be asking of every person on the internet whenever they start dishing out information. It's even more important to ask this question when the person is like me, somebody who's basically a ghost on the internet. At the time of filming this video, I have 0 subscribers on this channel because it's brand new. I barely use Instagram, I use TikTok even less. I don't have a Twitter account, and I'm not sure if I've ever even made a post on Facebook. So where does my authority come from, if not from social proof? Well, I'm going to answer that question by introducing myself briefly, and then after that we'll dive straight into the main point of this video. My name is Dylan John Barner. I've been a practicing musician for about 20 years at this point. I started out on the drums when I was a wee lad. I then joined the school choir. Shortly after that, I started receiving classical training on the alto saxophone. I started learning music theory, and I continued to do both of those things right up until the end of high school. I played in a wind band, orchestra, jazz band, military band, and I'm also a self-taught guitarist. My dad showed me the basics when I was young, and I just kept on learning guitar through the power of the internet. In the middle of high school, I started teaching myself modern styles of music production and songwriting via the internet. I've been writing and producing for over a decade now, and it took me a really long time to get good enough to the point that I was truly confident in the music I was making. And that's just because I made a whole lot of mistakes along the way that you don't have to make if you just watch this video. That being said, I was still able to achieve a significant transformation in my music making abilities over the years. I went from sounding like this to sounding like this.
If you don't want it all, then I don't wanna know, no.
I beat a pipe and pick the pedal like a picnic in the summer. Shit, flipping, whipping, but this love cannot be scripted.
Everybody's trying to be somebody on the internet. Algorithms and choreography. Comment sections green with jealousy. I don't wanna know your secrets. Saw you out at 10 all night after you texted me goodnight. Leave him. Pretty girl, you rule the world. Sitting up on top of the food chain. Baby girl, this is your day.
And even though my online presence is basically non-existent, as we've previously discussed, I've still managed to achieve some relative success with my music. Over the years, my music has had some good views on YouTube, on SoundCloud. It's been added to playlists that went viral. I've also been able to consistently get added to some really cool Apple Music editorial playlists. I've had music on Top 30 Radio, and I was also a semi-finalist in the annual International Songwriting Competition. Now, generally speaking, a song can become successful simply because it's a good song, or because the artist has clout, or because of a combination of both of these things. But in my case, I obviously have 0 clout, and therefore I must have achieved this relative success based purely on the quality of my music. And that is ultimately why I believe I at least have enough authority to be making this video. Obviously, whether or not my music is good enough is something that you can decide for yourself, so I'll link some more of my music in the description below, and I'll try and label it by genre so that you can get a more well-rounded idea. It's also worth noting that I literally do everything by myself. I write the music, I produce it, I sing it, I record myself, I mix it, I master it, and I do all of this from my home studio, I didn't need super expensive equipment to get radio ready sound quality, and neither do you. Now, if you're a beginner in all of this, or you're looking to level up your music like I've leveled up my music, I will be talking about how you can reach out to me later on in the video because I would love to help you. But before that, let's just dive right into the main event. So, can you learn music production in 10 days? In my opinion, the answer is yes, and here's why. The journey towards being able to make good music is made up of two key components. Component number one is studying, and component number two is practicing. Studying is generally something that you'll focus on for a specific period of time, and practicing is something that generally continues forever. Even the greatest songwriters and producers of today are still practicing all the time. We practice simply because we love making music, but also because we're always trying to push our creative limits. Simply put, there's always going to be room for improvement, and developing your ear for music production is always going to take time. For further clarity, I would also say that efficient practicing is actually what makes us better at creating good music, and good studying is just the prerequisite for efficient practicing. The issue with the way we learn music production today is that there's often an inefficient overlap between the studying component and the practicing component of our journey, and this is something that happens in phases. During phase 1, we might hop onto YouTube and search up how to make music. Instantly, we are flooded with a ridiculous amount of videos and we just don't know where to start. There are so many music production content creators, there are so many videos, and a lot of the time, the content is just super bloated with tons of waffling and time wasting. Sometimes content that can be taught in one concise video is divided up into like 4 separate videos. And then after feeling overwhelmed by all of this, we move on to phase 2, where we start feeling demotivated, because it just seems that there's such an impossible amount of content standing between us and our goal of becoming competent music creators. So what happens next? Well, if we overcome this feeling of demotivation, we move over into phase 3, where the inefficient overlap between study and practice begins. We basically just start watching videos on YouTube randomly without any structure or strategy. We'll sit through hours of content just to get one good piece of information, and then we take that incomplete knowledge over into whatever music production software we have, and then we try to practice making music without really having a good enough toolkit to do so competently. And we'll repeat this process over and over again until we finally start getting somewhere. Now, bear in mind, I would say that this is inefficient practice, but inefficient practice is still better than no practice. I think it's a great idea to put new information into practice as soon as you learn it, but what if there was a way to make our practicing significantly more efficient and more effective? Let me give you an analogy to make this clear. Imagine 2 equally talented young basketball players starting to prepare for basketball tryouts that are scheduled to take place exactly 12 months from right now. Player 1 spends 2 days a week doing technique and fitness drills on his own, and 3 days a week playing real basketball games with the other kids in his neighborhood. Player 1 does this for a full 12 months. Player 2, however, is offered the chance to practice with some older kids that train at a world-class facility with some of the best coaches around, but under one condition. Player 2 has to commit himself to a full 3-month boot camp of hardcore technique and fitness drills at their facilities without getting any game time whatsoever for the full duration of that 3-month period. Player 2 accepts this condition and completes the 3 months of boot camp. His strength, stamina, and technique all increase significantly enough for him to stand a chance against the older kids. And so for the remaining 9 months, Player 2 adopts a similar routine to Player 1, doing technical and fitness stuff on his own for 2 days in the week, and then playing actual basketball games for 3 days in the week. But instead of playing those basketball games against the other kids in the neighborhood, Player 2 is playing against high-level athletes that are going to push him beyond his limits. Both players understand the necessity of study time and practice time, but Player 2 understands the importance of using his study time to unlock practice sessions that happen at a higher level. So basically, the way music production content is presented to us encourages us to be more like Player 1, when in reality, being more like Player 2 is probably going to get us better results faster. So, how do we become more like Player 2 in the context of learning how to make music? Well, Player 2's method is all about starting with a streamlined, highly concentrated study plan, which then unlocks the potential for his practice sessions to happen at a higher level. These high-level practice sessions then allow him to progress at a significantly faster rate than Player 1. So, let's begin with a streamlined, highly concentrated study plan for making music. For a while now, I've had this theory that all the knowledge needed for making modern popular styles of music can be condensed into a really speedy format without sacrificing any detail. And eventually, the time came where I had to put that theory to the test. So I sat down, I divided all of my music making knowledge up into 10 different sections or 10 different days. Then I made some notes for each section. I reviewed and enhanced those notes with a good musician friend of mine. I recorded myself giving a fully detailed talk on each section. I screen recorded some of my producing sessions to use as examples, and then I edited everything together, and these were the times that I was able to achieve. So I'm about to break down the content of all 10 days in detail, and at the end of my explanation, I'll summarize everything into a 10-day study plan that you can copy for yourself. The first of the 10 days is all about essential music theory, and my grand total for this section was 78 minutes and 34 seconds. Now, this time result kind of proves my hypothesis right off the bat, because I studied music theory in school for multiple years, and I was able to get through all of the essential stuff on camera in just over an hour. For this section, all we need to know is that in music there are 12 unique notes, and the key of a song defines which 7 out of those 12 notes are active within the song. Chords are just harmonized combinations of those active notes, and you string together different chords within the key to form chord progressions that the vocalist can sing over. Day 2 and 3 is all about songwriting, and together these videos are about 72 minutes long. Day 2 focuses on lyrics. I personally have notebooks and flip files filled with handwritten lyrics for songs that never got to see the light of day, and I'm sure that content packaged like this could have really helped me speed up the process. Oftentimes, we make the same mistakes over and over again before realizing what we've done wrong. And with lyrics, that could be stuff like focusing too much on having a strict rhyme scheme, or making your lyrics super cheesy, or making them like quintessential, or making them too cryptic, or maybe you can't find the right balance between being poetic and being conversational. Whatever the case may be, we often struggle with getting our lyrics to have the same level of professional eloquence that we find in the words of popular songs. And I think that Day 2's content can really help in that regard. Day 3 is all about melody and song structure. Generally, when we first try writing vocal melodies or melodies for instruments, we face one of two problems. Either the melody feels way too simplistic and elementary, or it feels way too all over the place, as if the melody has no direction. In order to understand how we can write melodies that are catchy, that have a sense of direction, and that don't feel overly simplistic or repetitive, we need to first understand melodic phrasing. And in order to understand melodic phrasing, we need to first understand how to properly count bars. This is what Day 3 focuses on. together with guidance on how we can practice more intentionally towards tangible melody writing goals, as well as focusing on different kinds of overall song structures that have proven to be successful over the years. Song structure is used to strategically control where the calm moments and the high energy moments of your song are placed in order to keep the listener engaged from start to finish. On day 4, I condensed my sound design approach right down into a 30-minute video. When I first started learning how to use synths, it was super intimidating because every synth has so many different knobs and buttons and parameters, you don't really know where to look or where to start. But in reality, pretty much all synths have some key controls in common. And once you understand this, together with the super easy sound design method that I use, you should be able to work your way around any popular synth plugin and achieve high quality sounds every time. My method is mostly just getting good at finding preset sounds that I enjoy, and then using a solid foundational understanding of sound design to reverse engineer the preset until it sounds closer to the kind of sound that I want. This way I get to piggyback off of the expertise of sound designers that are better than me whilst learning from them in the process. If you're going to use this kind of method, I'd recommend using more popular synth plugins, because the more popular a synth plugin is, the bigger the library of preset sounds there will be for it on the internet. Also, if a preset sounds good to you as is, there's nothing wrong with just using good preset sounds. On day 5, we get right into the nitty-gritty of making beats or producing instrumentals. And this day's video content came down to a grand total of 132 minutes and 45 seconds. This is where I started to notice that having immense amounts of detail in the content is of paramount importance, because if there's one thing that really bothered me when I was in the middle of learning this stuff, it's the way that people were so unspecific whenever anybody asked them how to get a more professional sound or how to get the X factor in their music. So with day 5, I spent tons of time coming up with realistic ways to break down abstract creative concepts using things like step-by-step approaches or coming up with concrete creative toolkits, and generally just trying to use language that makes the advice instantly helpful and actionable instead of just being generic. Some key elements in this day's content include sound selection, where I talk about how we can divide different types of sounds into separate categories that can be layered on top of one another most easily because of their unique sonic qualities. I call this my layering blueprint. There's also a step-by-step baseline composition guide. There are tutorials on how to use and flip samples, and there's generally a whole lot of guidance on how to compose well for each layer of a modern beat production, except for drums, because that is covered in day 6, along with how to break down the science of modern popular genres of music. This is a blueprint that allows you to break down the key components of basically any modern genre of music while you are listening to it, so that you can understand it and then produce it yourself. And once I've covered that, I use the same blueprint to create a step-by-step approach for drum composition as well, because drums are so important in defining the essence of so many modern popular genres of music. The day 6 video content is about 91 minutes and 52 seconds long, and it ends off with something I refer to as the hook reduction method, which basically means you create the hook section of your instrumental first, and then you strategically remove certain instruments from the hook pattern to create more laid back patterns that can be used in other sections of the song, like your verses or pre-choruses. This technique, combined with an understanding of song structure from day 3, will really help you create productions that are engaging from start to finish. Moving on to day 7 and day 8, we step into the audio engineering side of things, which is usually the biggest separating factor between recordings that sound professional and recordings that don't. The first topic in question is mixing. Day 7 focuses on mixing instrumentals, and day 8 focuses on vocal mixing. Now, it's very important to understand what mixing is in this context, because we're not talking about the way a DJ might blend songs together during their set. That's a different type of mixing. In the context of music production, mixing refers to the process of taking the multiple audio tracks that make up a full song and combining them in a cleaner fashion to deliver a high-fidelity audio experience. This involves adjusting individual track volume levels, panning left and right, and applying effects such as equalization, compression, and reverb on a track-by-track basis so that we can enhance the overall sound by fine-tuning the individual sounds. The goal of mixing is to ensure that all audio tracks are balanced, harmonically blended, and are clear, achieving a final mix that sounds good on a wide range of playback systems. Each track should sound good not only in isolation, but also in the context of the full song. Now, mixing can be incredibly challenging, and a lot of mixing comes down to simply training your ears through practice. People can teach you what to listen out for, but they probably can't teach you how to hear it. That's something that you'll have to develop on your own with practice. Day 7 is one of the most technically dense sections of content, coming in at 156 minutes and 36 seconds long. And day 6 isn't that much quicker, coming in at 111 minutes and 1 second long. Alright, moving on to the last piece of the audio engineering puzzle, we have day 9, which focuses on mastering. So mastering begins once you have your final mix, meaning that all of your mixing stuff has already been completed. Similarly, in this phase of the audio engineering process, you'll be applying effects to enhance your sound, but this time you apply those effects on the master track. This means that the effects you apply will impact the entire song as a whole, which is different from trying to enhance and balance the song on a track-by-track basis, which occurred in the mixing phase. The goal of mastering is to achieve competitive levels of loudness, to control your dynamics, so your loud moments and your quiet moments, and also to achieve those final touches of tonal richness and production value in the audio. After mastering, your final mix should sound its best in multiple different playback scenarios without there being a need for listeners to adjust their volume settings when moving from another song over to yours in a playlist, for example. Day 9 clocks in at 59 minutes and 34 seconds. Alright, lastly we've got day 10, which is a really simple one. Here I basically just talk about how to set up a home studio that can get you pro level sound without overspending. I also talk about some best practices for recording vocals at home, and I round things off with a few final pro tips. And that's it. That's the 10-day study plan. I'll outline it on screen right now with all the key points and stuff so that you can take a screenshot and copy it for yourself. So you can literally go on YouTube, find separate videos that cover all of these key points, and then put all of the videos into a playlist and watch them in order while taking notes. However, if you plan on doing it this way with free content sourced from all over YouTube, it's probably going to be really difficult to stick to the 10-day time frame and still get a high quality learning experience. So if you would like to check out the 10-day study plan that I created with all of my notes and some quizzes too, or if you need any kind of assistance on your music production journey, please reach out to me via Instagram DM or via email. Simply send me a message that says, "Hey Dylan, I came here from YouTube," and I'll respond with a short questionnaire that you can fill out, and based on those answers we can determine whether or not I can help you with a 10-day study plan and maybe some other kinds of assistance as well. I'll drop my Instagram handle and my email address in the description below. I'll probably respond faster on Instagram, but email is perfectly fine as well. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you could share this video with a friend that might be interested in this kind of stuff, I'd really appreciate that. That would be really helpful. And there's definitely more content on the way, so be sure to like the video, subscribe, leave a comment, and I'll see you all in the next one. Take care and God bless.